Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. Maybe now it's officially getting cold because it's scary month or whatnot, but yeah, here we are. And also, I'm on a busy road because I'm trying to get my way out of here as quickly as possible. So why am I at this particular point? Well, that is because I was trying to shop for, a birthday present for a certain family member, and I needed to do that. So I'm trying to figure out which is the best way to cross or go places or anything. Right, here we go. And so, I thought, well, I also booked an appointment for a flu jab. Oh well, I haven't booked it in my name, but same thing. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out again. Now all the cars are coming from this side. I did that intentionally to avoid, any sort of issues. To be honest, I very much just could, keep going in this direction, head off to the main city around here, or, main big town, whatever you want to call it. Actually, no, it's got to be called city. And see if I can look around in the shops there, because that's the real place to get stuff. It'll take a bit longer to get home, but that's fine. That's fine. So I was about halfway in between both locations, so I was like, yeah, you know what, why not? So, with that in mind, the reason I was out here, flu jab appointment, so I had that. It's in my other arm, obviously. So I thought, which arm am I going to hold? Which arm am I going to hold the camera with? And that was the decision. Because of course the first thing I was asked, by the pharmacist was, left or right. So, yeah, that was it. But yeah, I thought I might shop around in that particular, area. As it turns out, there just really aren't many good shops. Or there's not shops that I specifically, or the things that I would, be able to find something good in. Now, if I happen to not find anything, I have a backup plan. But, that's the thing about backup plans, you do them when you need a backup for something. And currently, I do not. So, yeah, we're gonna keep going. Also, I've driven down this road countless times. I know it's about to amp up to a 40, so I am going to cross. And I've switched hands because I got tired. I mean, I should be keeping this arm moving anyway because that's what I normally do. That's the recommendation that I tend to receive overall. I guess now all the cars are coming from the side that I plan to go to. Right after I've pressed the... Yeah, okay. Ah, jeez. Okay. You know what? I'm not going to go down there at all. I'm going to go down this way. That might actually be a bad idea. Right, well... Okay. I could just head back. I'm trying to get out of roads, and I'm going on the path that has the most roads. What am I doing? Yeah, no, I'm just going back and shopping on local high streets. That should give me enough options without too much in the way of, you know, being overwhelmed by choice. That's one thing, you know. Sometimes whenever it's like being at a restaurant, actually. Being a vegetarian has a distinct advantage, at least in the UK, where you're not spending ages choosing options on a menu, because you only have so many you can eat anyway, so why not? In a place like Spain, it's a bit worse because you know, you need to have a few options to choose from rather than just almost nothing, depending on which establishment you're in. But here in the UK, it works. Anyways, so while I head back and hopefully try to, you know, beat the traffic that is catching up to me. And this is the 30 part. I don't know. I guess I'll talk about things that have been different this week. Starting with, I have an upcoming audition, or one that I plan to go to. You know, as it turns out, you know, pantomime auditions don't always get called in September. Some of them are in October. So, you know, I got referred one. I was like, okay, you know, once I pick out a character or two to apply for, maybe I wanted to fire a few messages off to some people, kind of reunite with them and see if we want to practice the audition together. Never got that far because, as it turns out, not logging into Instagram in a while means that you know, all your settings are, you have to redo them all. So yeah, that was my plan before leaving, but hey, there you go. Sometimes that happens. I don't know how to approach that audition entirely just yet, because, you know, there's one character that you know, I would really like to try out for, that's due to you know, how casting and playing agents work, is probably not going to pan out, unless I just don't shave, in which case maybe it will. And another one that doesn't specify, that I could, you know, very easily, you know, sink my teeth into, but doesn't have as much substance overall. So it's really a toss between those two. I guess I could go for the lead, but, you know, to be honest, like a lot of people, you know, I don't know, it depends, because, like, again, the lead would have to probably match, because I match the rest of the cast, so who knows? The cast playing this Stanley, I mean. I'm not sure, didn't speak to me as much, so hey, who is to say, I suppose. Well, me, but you know what I meant. So yeah, more on that next week, because we've got a birthday celebration coming up directly after that. No, sorry, directly before that. So I'll have lots of real life stuff to report on next time. As for this time, not so much. It's mostly YouTube stuff again, because it has been an unusual week as far as YouTube stuff goes. We didn't have a D&D session this week. We're going to have one tomorrow, actually, so stay tuned for that. Now it's calmed down finally. Jeez, sounds like it could have gone the other way all along. That's why I don't like filming on roads with cars and everything. It's just a bad decision. The last time I took a detour around these parts, I ended up somewhere entirely different. It took me half an hour to get back. Then again, I didn't have my phone with me, so that would have helped out, you know, but whatever. But yeah, in terms of what's happened with the YouTube stuff this time, it's been unusual partly because we've had 2 Minecraft reviews in the span of only a couple of days. And I'm not necessarily complaining too much about that. Firstly, because, you know, around this time we're going to have to start, you know, looking at the entries for Gacha Fest as well as for the Jacobs, and sort of collating them all together. So I kind of wrapped up a bunch of stuff last week, you know, at the last Camp Creek, or this week, I mean, last Camp Creek, last Battle for Dreamhouse, along with actually, like, you know, exposing myself to the source material to some degree, which has been a fun experience for Total Drama, but not, you know. And as for Battle for Dream Island, a little bit. Then again, I watched 2 episodes of that, so who knows really. But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting experience looking into those things, and once again remembering April Moon's comment about trying to be original in terms of her creations, which actually is something, before we get to the Minecraft side of things, at least properly, I should talk about, because I found a video that April Moon did recently, you know, discussing the ideas of, you know, having not blown up as a gacha creator, and you know, kind of like the reasoning, or I guess what she believes the reasoning to be. And if I remember correctly from the video, what she said was that one of the big reasons is because it's the classic thing, you know, of people making trending topics as far for, you know, video material. Or sorry, I mean video material on trending topics, wrong way around. And that being and that being the that being the, so I was going to say, and that being the reason that they blew up. And for comparison's sake, of course, you know, she used one of her friends who, you know, is decently famous as a gacha creator and has had, you know, a monumental year, to be honest, as far as, you know, everything goes. And yeah, discussing, like, you know, the main series that you know got her popularity being one that was you know, of interest at the time, you know, like My Political Rival, or that's what it was called, I think. I haven't got to that one yet. Of course, I'm talking about one of the Alpha sisters. I believe Jessie is the one specifically. But yeah, because Jessie has also made videos, or a video discussing how My Political Rival turned into basically the only thing that people wanted to see on the channel at the time. So it became essentially a double-edged sword in that sense. You know, that everyone demanded the next episode of that, when, you know, obviously people want to create other things. You know, you don't want to have someone, you know, constantly demanding one show if you have other ideas, and I completely understand that. And yeah, it devolved into, you know, something very toxic, you know, your classic death threats and all of that malarkey that you get. And so basically, there was a video recently talking about, like, that whole experience. Also, ironic enough, talking about another show that has since eclipsed it, which was COVID versus monkeypox. You can see the type of content that is making the rounds on the Alpha Sisters, basically. And that having, I believe, a similar a similar effect, basically. My political rival during the elections, and then COVID versus monkeypox when monkeypox was broke out and was being announced everywhere. So it is a repeated pattern, and possibly one was created in an attempt to overshadow the other, a successful one at that. And then of course, straight and all gay school, I believe, is still on top of everything, but that's only a two-parter, so it's not the same thing. So yeah, it's almost like it becomes like a prison of your own design if something happens to that degree, and people latch on with toxicity as a result. It's not ideal. So I'm going to take a detour around here. You might recognize this area now. So that's what April was saying. She was to some extent glad that hadn't happened, and that if it does happen, she wants to be about a show that she likes, compared to what happened with Jessie, or whichever Alpha Sister it happens to be, where the shows were not were disliked. It actually really harkens back to the olden days of Gacha, where everyone was where it was the reason things were trending was because everyone was copying the exact same thing and making those own videos. And it's kind of a similar situation that I found myself in, back when I started with Gacha, which was, trying to make something original, and then being overshadowed by the stuff that was constantly making the rounds, and then was what was I gonna say? Yeah, and then was nope, it's gone. Sorry, and then was overshadowing me. That's what I meant to say. And yeah, Mutant Girl hit a much larger stride when voice acting took off in Gacha, because why wouldn't it at that point? But yeah, I mean, even today with its cult following, still far better than being trapped in that particular cycle necessarily. Not to say that I'm bored of the show. Just now that it takes much longer to make, I'm glad that it's not. I'm glad that I'm not having like excessive demands. But even then, there is a difference between Mutant Girl now and Mutant Girl then, as far as the perception goes. Or sorry, not the perception, the reception, I should say. So yeah, there's that. So to some extent, I see what she's trying to say. Trying to go the original route is definitely more satisfying as a creator, because even though the Mutant Girl has not reached monumental success or anything, it's probably the thing that I am the most proud of overall, in terms of how long I've been doing YouTube for, which is about just about twice as long as Mutant Girl itself has existed for. Maybe even a bit more, actually. So I get so yeah, the difference is when April talks about being original and having original ideas, it hasn't reflected in the actual ideas being put forward. I already mentioned how she said she didn't realize she was being so unoriginal when it came to what was I going to say? When it came to my first day in an all-public school, which was essentially straight and all gay school part 2, sometimes even shot for shot. Now, to some people, that feels like it could be a lie in terms of, wanting to cover her tracks, basically. Especially because that video was created, again, by one of her friends, as mentioned previously. And then, of course, there's the fact that I know about Total Drama and to a lesser extent, Battle for Dream Island, that I can now say, yeah, those ones aren't super original either. You know, like the more that I looked at like last episode, and I recognized what Ghosty particularly was saying about, you know, how certain characters like Gigi, for example, which is basically Heather, I believe it was Lena, I think it was, that was there was the version of Lindsay who got them getting everyone's name wrong. Lena was actually did have a bit more of a different direction. Their dynamic was a little bit different and much more equal than Heather and Lindsay in Total Drama, but still not ideal, really. And of course the challenges themselves. The fact that the staying on top of the bar thing seemed like it was never in Total Drama. It was actually the second episode of Battle for Dream Island, how they decided that they were the teams in the first place, which is exactly what they did in the second episode of Battle for Dream House by April Moon. So we see the issue. But yeah, it's always difficult to realize that yeah, even like, you know, if you pick from two different sources, if you still identify from those sources, because as I said before, there are no truly original ideas. The human brain remixes ideas, but the problem is when you don't have enough ingredients, the mixture looks the same as the original thing, just slightly beaten up a little bit. And that's what April Moon is experiencing. A lot of gacha tubers, especially when they were extremely young back in the olden days, hadn't been exposed to that many things, and therefore, if you take, you know, it's the old adage, if you only like expose, you know, a baby or a young child to country music, let's say, and ask them to write a song, they'll write a country song, because that's all they know. And yes, you know, I had the same discussion with BB at one point, and she went on a whole thing about how, you know, the children have more information they can actively search for, you know, even going to the extent of talking about libraries and stuff. And it's like, yes, but they need the drive, they need to understand why that's important to do, or that there are more things to find anyway in terms of media, and that's not always easy. In fact, it is almost never easy. It's never that simple. So, you know, that was our back and forth about that. But yeah, I think maybe like April might be in a similar boat almost. Like, you know, she's tunnel visioned on these particular things that she likes, and hasn't experienced, you know, the differing ideas, or like, you know, how other stories, you know, can be structured outside of that, is what I would be saying if it weren't for the fact that I've seen what I believe at the moment to be signs of originality from April Moon, but they're kind of buried. Now, it was pointed out that there's no Total Drama episode, according to Ghosty, where they make a movie, you know, or a short film of any kind between the two teams. So the premise of episode 4 was relatively original. But even beyond that point, in the actual episode, they, you know, one of the movies was relatively boring, but the kind of thing that you would think a bunch of you know, non-writers and actors would present if they were suddenly told in a competition, a reality show, that they had to make a short film. So, you know. And then another one was, you know, complete with like special effects, character arcs, twists, you know, and a unique setting, all of that. And it really seemed like I couldn't put my finger on like anything that it was from specifically. So, you know, that's absolutely the place where I think, you know, April should go next. I said in that video, you know, that she should develop that particular story. You know, that short film, make it into something, you know, maybe like his own video, like something a bit more, you know, like a bit more, I guess, like budgeted, because it was obviously meant for the competition. But even then, the effects they did, they looked like something you could pull off at the time. But yeah, imagine like on a much wider scale, would be amazing. Could be even like a full-on show set in space. There are not many gacha series that are set in space, and that's partly because gacha has a few space backgrounds, but they're not very developed. So, you know, naturally they all end up on Earth anyway. But, you know, the ones that exist in there are, you know, decently varied enough for like an episode or two. And then if you know, do custom backgrounds, then, you know, you're off to the races. So yeah, I would love to have seen that. The thing is that, yeah, so bottom line, April Moon is trying to be original, it seems, in the if we take her word to be honest in that announcement video. The problem is she's not succeeding as much as she thinks she is, but she's not marketing things as, you know, like fandom stuff or anything, so they don't get the attention that fandom content could get, you know, from its existing following. That's another thing that, you know, she could actually do before going full on original. Maybe dip her toes into some fandom stuff. You know, pick a franchise that she enjoys that's not Total Drama or Battle for Dream Island, because that's already being done by her, and then try to see if you actually gain more traction from that setup. I mean, Rosie Closey, you know, first started gaining attention during during the airing of Changes, the Drarry the Drarry fan series that she created. You know, there's I mean, obviously that was, you know, several years ago, but I mean, still, the landscape hasn't changed that much to not allow that kind of thing to shine to a certain extent. You could also take something like Secrets of the Plex, for example, that uses FNAF as its basis, but, you know, and that's where the originality comes from. Something that exists within the FNAF universe that follows the rules and law as much as is physically possible with FNAF, because let's face it, that's an uphill battle constantly, and manages to be its own thing. You know, that's probably an avenue to explore, I would say, because clearly the just trending stuff is not April's style, and she's seen the negative ramifications of going down that route, even in the modern context, like what's happening with the Alpha Sisters, or particularly with Jessie. So yeah, one of those two options, you know, fandom content for a bit to find your own footing in stories, followed up, I would say, by you know, making that short film come to life, assuming that it is also not based on something. The subconscious is a difficult thing to I guess, you know, avoid when it comes to that kind of thing. I'm not absolving myself of, you know, ripping plot lines straight from other source material. Like I've mentioned before, part of season 1 of Mutant Girl was ripped straight from Witch, but of course it was reapplied to already established characters and reworked in order to fit within, you know, how that universe functions, or at least how, you know, they had it function, because magic does exist, but they don't have it or know about it, so they wouldn't use it. So yeah, with that, I guess it's time to turn around, I think. I did mention Minecraft stuff, because I did 2 of those. And yeah, it's I'm realizing more and more there's not just Ovek that's evolved the art of Minecraft roleplays past where Afmal left it, or Ovek /Mania. they're not the same person. I mean, like, I've watched both of their content, and, you know, that's the impression I got. But no, there are others, you know, like Rexifer, for example, that on a technical side is definitely making strides, and is sort of, you know, breaking a few of the conventions and taboos. Again, another thing that I argued heavily with BB about when I made Drama Club was just how the production, you know, should be handled. Because to some extent, I can see the advantage of, you know, managing tons of people all at once, and having them all be able to speak at the same time, and that, you know, taking an eternity. That I can understand, and that's that was not BB's idea, to have them all at once. That was definitely an Aiden decision, because it was, you know, he created the show. But BB suggested not having not that I'm not being able to speak parts except for a few of the mains, and I argued against that because of, you know, for the sake of pacing. Now, I'm not sure if it's, you know, the fact that, you know, everyone spoke over each other that was, you know, the doom. I think it was more of a combination, like, you know, the different mods, and, you know, confusion and constant questions about what was going on, rather than just, you know, trusting the process. As someone trying to direct a particular scene, I was like, I promise this will make sense when we get to it. Just trust me for now. Honestly, it was more just the mods thing. But yeah, that was just basically because the text-to-speech thing, not text-to-speech, the text instead of speech thing came from BB's experience filming with Polar, and how those things went down. And yeah, there was, you know, for all the faults that Polar has, you know, you know, he got actual final products. You know, there was definitely an element of the machine being well oiled, so to speak. Beyond that, don't really know. Because you know, there's some things that we've like agreed to move on from as well, like custom NPCs and the NPC like dialogue box. But actually, Rexifer, you know, kind of partially solved that issue by having the voice actors, you know, read over that, you know, in post, and adding that in post, and also the model reactions over the top of them. You know, so that you wouldn't have to stage the whole thing if that was impossible. Plus a few animations here or there, and you know, new movement mods and such. Definitely the movement mods have absolutely, you know, improved everything. So yeah, that show is Freak Show, by the way, and it's one that definitely, it combines the best of, I think, tradition with modernity from a technical aspect. Story-wise, I don't know. There's also just, you know, an idea that, you know, you're forced to have HD skins, or trying to, you know, work out that stuff, and therefore you couldn't go past like 1.12 at a stretch, and in some cases 1.8, depending on what would work. And so, you know, a lot of the new stuff that's in actual Minecraft that would be useful would be, you know, impossible to access. It's like a discussion I had with Shorty in terms of how Mob Slayer should be handled, because Mob Slayer was written with the intention of being the most modern version of Minecraft possible. So, you know, immediately I started panicking as soon as it was suggested to reduce the game version and have a mod that would add the other stuff back in for the sake of particularly custom NPCs and HD skins. I was like, is it really worth it? Like, I have so much more. Again, visuals versus story, I keep saying this. The other thing that we watched this week was just yesterday, Wolfbound, recommended by Aiden. And yeah, that one that one started releasing in 2017, so it doesn't have, you know, the modern advantages that, you know, like the Freak Show did. But yeah, that's where like some of the HD skin discussion actually came from. What Aiden said was that if you're going to have HD skins, apply them to everyone, including the NPCs, which I guess is fair enough. I mean, you know, I actually personally, I turned down the idea of HD skins overall, because the one that Aiden made for Sir Nicanor, that was the series I was offered them for. Because the one that Aiden made for Sir Nicanor looked horrifying. So I was like, now this takes away from what he is. So let's not. But hey, not like that one was even more of a classical callback, basically, than the others, and to some extent, I know that held the show back. Gone are the days of mostly single player, without the use of custom NPCs and actually having the characters develop instead of just reacting to them. Not to say that characters like Squire Beans and Hoodie the Mage and and all of those won't definitely have a special place in my heart, but they definitely would not work now. And if you don't know where they are from the Tale of Kingdoms series that inspired Sir Nicanor. They ran from 2011 to 2013, so you know what that means. Yeah, when I say traditions in terms of Minecraft roleplays, and I'm referring to the era of My Street, I acknowledge that that even then, the stuff that My Street was doing was groundbreaking, because what came before, with a few exceptions, was even more rudimentary, basically. And to some extent, I can see why the two different styles evolved. The custom NPC style, where you can have more structure and more post-editing, and then you have the, I guess, Polar Bear, It's Funny, to some extent Mania, because you dabbled in both of them, actually, and even Drama Club, that style, where, everyone is there at once, and it's essentially improv theatre, compared to, I guess, more structured theatre, like the other version. I can see why both styles have diverged, and to some extent I commend both of them. But yeah, now I'm glad to see that we didn't stagnate after Aphmau stopped. Even now that she's back, actually, there's a few things where people have gone in different directions, and I appreciate that has continued. And I've kind of slept on all of that stuff because I was so focused on keeping the Aphmau fandom alive that I kind of just didn't realize, as I was again delving more into gacha at the time, that the areas of Minecraft specifically were continuing to flourish and become better than they were before. So yeah, I might amp up the Minecraft reviews from now on, which would definitely make award ceremony selections much easier in terms of gacha stuff, when there's less of a pool. Again, like in the case of being vegetarian in a British restaurant, the fewer options you have, the more likely it is you'll be able to make a good selection for yourself, or in this case for others. So yeah, I do look forward to that, and I'm glad that I've closed down a lot of the chapters that I was working on. Even the passing of the torch, with the exception of Starichi, has come to an end. So the Starichi stuff will definitely continue into next year, but 2025 as a whole has been like that one progression in that matter to another right from the start of the year, really. So now that that's wrapping to a close as well, hey, let's see what Gacha Fest has picked that I haven't looked into, because I'm going to have to be able to make a good judgment of those as well. So that's my next chapter, and that's probably the difference from now on. More Minecraft stuff, and more and more things that in Gacha that came out this year, so that I can judge them better for Gacha Fest. And I think that's that for now. As far as actual music and production stuff goes, well, we'll see. But unlike with you know, with that, well, like with Jesse's situation, I don't feel like I'm boxed into just Gacha review, especially because I'm just talking about, you know, branching out and doing more other stuff. So we'll see. Makes me think about the AFMAU songs as well this year, and how I've been doing one of those per month. It's like, I mean, you know, I might actually want to do, you know, some songs about some other characters, because those were inspired by Aaron Fraser Nash, and Aaron Fraser Nash does like every, you know, every franchise, including of course a lot of trending ones, and that's what kind of like helped in 2017 when the film It came out. But yeah, maybe next year I will slow that down, because that was partly meant to, you know, ride on the hype of My Street being announced and all this stuff, and now that AFMAU's doing that stuff and we're reviewing the show, don't really need to anymore. So we'll see. Another good 2025 project I can actually bring to a close in a satisfying manner at some point, assuming Aiden will let it go, of course. So yeah, a lot of changes on the horizon, I suppose. And if I end up landing that audition, even more changes as far as what I'll be up to. Who knows? Maybe I'll even advertise the dates of the performance if I'm involved with it. We'll see. But for now, please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters. I'm right back at the road actually as well, so this is perfect. And subscribe if you've done so already. And on that note, until next time, farewell.